for the broadcast here as
Sure.
we pop on. All right, cool. The thing that sucks about Twitter bans is that, they never want to give you specific information on why they did a ban. And so you're kind of like, in a lot of cases, stuck to trying to figure it out yourself. Occasionally you'll get like, the worst I've ever gotten is I've seen people report tweets. And, they'll send me a thing of like, this tweet was reported and, it's under review, or you can take it down. What's weird is of all the crazy shit I've tweeted and like offensive jokes and everything over the years, the only tweet I ever had to take down was the Billie Eilish Michael Jackson one. Do you remember that tweet?
Vaguely.
Yeah, I just said Billie Eilish's music is so terrible that we should have let Michael Jackson have as many children as he needed to keep making music. Which is obviously a fucking joke. But the funny thing is like all her fans came after me and were like, he's pro pedophilia. And it's like, no, I'm fucking pro comedy, making a joke about how bad her music is.
You just made another Billie Eilish joke, did you?
It wasn't even a Billie Eilish joke. I was making this is why people are fucking retarded. I was making a self-deprecating fat joke because Scotchy Cool, I think I'm saying her name right, wrote this article about stop calling like chunky regular women brave, which is kind of funny because she did it under the guise of like almost like making it more tolerant and acceptance, but it's actually kind of a very anti-woke concept. Is like, yeah, stop calling chunky girls brave. That's just normal, and you should stop sensationalizing it. So I just said, if her body makes her brave, then mine makes me a 9/11 fireman.
Right? And at this point, I'm going to stop working out. There's really no point anymore. I'm just going to start eating what I want if that's the case, if that's being brave.
As I eat a donut while you
eat a donut.
You train jujitsu.
Like, yeah, I just literally starved myself and ate like 3 chicken breasts. And you're over here eating a donut. No, like Twitter.
Yeah, fuck it. I'm an American hero. I don't know what your problem is.
Yeah, dude, you're a fireman, dude. Put you on a calendar. Like, and then
you laugh. Maybe I should make like a sexy calendar. I got so many
big bone
fans.
Gingers are in, man. Big bone gingers are in.
Just a thick, just bear cub calendar. Just the 12 months of me.
Dude, just hairy red, like fire chest and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the thing about Twitter,
different sexy scenarios for my birthday month, August. I'm just spread asshole.
Like you're just like the Burt Reynolds layout from the 70s when he did that spread, and I mean full spread.
Yeah, fully. I mean,
somebody actually back a few years, like 10 years ago, it was when I was stationed in Texas. They literally took in my shower. I got home and took a shower. My buddies took that spread and put it in my shower. And then my supervisors came over and were looking at me like, dude, what the fuck? And back then it was don't ask, don't tell.
Right.
So, but yeah, like Twitter's one of those things, man. It's like when you mess up, it's like when your parents, you're in trouble and you're like, and they're yelling at you not to do something. And you're like, but why? And they're like, because I said so. That's why. That's Twitter in a nutshell.
Twitter in a roundabout way has been the only thing that has ever made me quit jobs or be fired from jobs in my entire employment history in a roundabout way. So I've lost 2 jobs because of Twitter controversies that came out from me being a comedian.
Yeah.
And I just walked away from another company, and I won't get into the whole details, everything, where a place where I was working and doing stuff recently with a couple of buddies, because I just got tired of having conversations about what I do as a comedian on Twitter. I mean, it's like this is I think I'm going to do like a PSA type video or like a video cover letter and just put it on my LinkedIn and say, listen, if you want to work with me, Google me first, right?
Right.
Like, don't even fucking call me for an interview unless you Google me first and you get the fact that I'm a comedian, and I'm going to say fucked up things in the guise of being a comedian.
That's how you fight back. That's how you fight back. Like, I think that, like, that's how you start saying, like, listen, I'm sick of your shit, Twitter. And listen, this is who I am as a person. This is what my thoughts and feelings are. And in a world where social media is so scrutinized, like, I think the employers should know, like, listen, what we're getting with this guy, we should already know. But also, like, why censor yourself, man? Just you need to tell them, like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it.
Well, it becomes a slippery slope, right? And this is like this is kind of like related to, without going into a ton of detail, one of the legal case I'm in right now pertains to one of these companies I work for. And, the tricky thing that companies are running into now that they're going to find out about is, you're bordering on, you're very much bordering on a violation of civil rights because let's see, if I'm making comedy, right, and I'm doing something satirical and I'm poking fun of a public figure, that's one thing. But if I'm making a joke that is from my perspective as somebody who is pro-life and anti-abortion, then that borders on protected political speech. And you could take it a degree further. And if, I'm not a super religious guy, but if it were something that were related to my religion, then if you fire me for making an anti-abortion joke on Twitter, vis-a-vis, you're kind of firing me for my religious beliefs. And basically, so companies are going to have to start learning that this becomes a slippery slope, right? Because perfect example is, let's say a woman working for a place posts something about OnlyFans and body positivity. And all of a sudden, they go, we don't like that messaging. We don't like that out there. We think it's too provocative. We're going to let you go. Next thing you know, you find out that girl's a lesbian, and the thing that she was posting was pertaining to her sexual orientation or sexual identity. And so the companies are what they're going to do is they're going to pay, £1 million of flesh, metaphorically speaking. They're going to get sued into oblivion. And then eventually, when enough of these happen, companies are going to realize, like, we don't give a fuck what's on your social media. We can't afford to. No. And if you have stuff on your social media that pertains to our business, where maybe you're sharing trade secrets or patents or proprietary information, then that's one thing, because that's just like stealing from work. But we have to get to a point in this country where you are allowed to be an individual outside of work. This big brother shit, if we're going to force you to conform by putting consequences attached to any freedom of expression that are so dire that it will just suppress your urge to say anything divergent, that's not a free country, man.
No, it's not. And every company has a mission statement. As anybody who's worked in the workforce at all, every company has a mission statement, and every company seems like every company, corporation has an agenda. But you have to make sure that what you're saying on social media aligns with their agenda and their mission statement. And if you don't, that's not, now you're in trouble. But like, oh wait, so that's okay if I disagree with you. If I disagree with you, so now you fire me. So like, it's a real slippery slope. And like, where can we come to a point and say, hey, listen, just because I work for your company and like sometimes I disagree with your mission statement or your set of ideals, at what point can we say, like, listen, it's cool that you believe in all that, but look, we'll let you be an individual, but it doesn't reflect. You can say it doesn't reflect. My views does not reflect on this company, and we haven't come to that yet. And I'm just wondering, like, when the fuck will that happen?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I think it's going to take a lot of lawsuits and shit before companies start realizing, like, we just can't be involved in who our people are outside of work. And this overreaching concept of, well, you're a representative of us 24/7. I mean, cool, then pay me 24/7. You can pay me this. And this is the fucking argument I have with everybody. Everybody goes, well, you're a reflection of the company. So, I went through this when I was at Food Network. I went through this in this last business endeavor. It's like everyone wants to have this conversation with you about how what you do publicly reflects and affects their business. Fine. Pay me not to do it. Pay me to do, if you want, this is what I don't understand. if you're saying that social media influencers are worth like 50 grand a campaign, 200,000 a campaign, whatever they're worth, right? To sell your product. If you're saying that my social media is so powerful that it can affect your brand, then if you want to tell me what to say about it, pay me. Right. And everybody has this idea of like, if you work for them, they don't have to do that. If you're a part of the company or you're involved in the business in some way, that your individual brand, your personal brand now belongs to them at no additional expense, and that they get to control what gets distributed on that channel. Sorry, motherfucker. I told the Food Network, if you want me to stop doing comedy and you guys don't want me to put shit on Twitter that you think is going to cause an unnecessary backlash to the network, pay me.
Right.
You were paying me $4 grand an episode. All right. I made almost $100 grand to do 24 episodes of television. It's pretty simple math.
Yeah.
If they wanted me to not do comedy at that time, I was like, that's fine. You can pay me the $2 million a year.
Yeah.
And put me like, I'll do 100 episodes a year of whatever fucking shows you want. I don't care. But I'm not going to silence the voice that got me a TV show in the first place. You know, for no money.
Yeah. You're also on the other side of that though. When you say I'll be quiet or I'll change my beliefs. I'll change my beliefs on paper for the right amount of money. But like, people are like, well, you're selling yourself out. It's like, no, I'm not selling myself out. It's about, we're in this business to make money. The days of, well, I'm in this business for the love of the game, it's over now. We live in a capitalistic society. Like, I understand that, listen, like musicians and comics, you and I love to do the things we do to make people laugh. However, at the end of the day,
or to push buttons or make them think or whatever your motivation is.
At the end of the day, we want to profit off this in a way that, you know, our product becomes better. I start doing, you know, actual shows and eventually one day theaters and so on.
Well, the good thing is, Matt, nobody's doing actual shows right now because there are no actual shows.
There are no actual shows. They're starting to get around to it here in Maryland because I think we're like the state with the least amount of cases or whatever. So they're kind of letting things up. But like even if they were opening up comedy clubs to a point where like they were letting open micers and actual paid comics, and do you really want to go and sit in front of like 5 people because of the social distancing? Not really, not for me. You know?
No, I definitely don't want to.
No, I looked into it and I was like, you know, having 50 people is cool, but that's not a lot. But also then like social distancing, now it comes down to 10. But like at the end of the day, I'm in this to make a side, like a hustle for myself. And you know, people are like, you sold out. Sure. Okay, cool. Like Metallica said once, they're like, you know, you sold out. And they're like, yeah, we sell out every show. So
yeah. I mean, you know, and this is the thing I have when people are talking about like, oh, well, that's selling out. It's to me, it's really, you're only selling yourself out if you're not getting what you think you're worth.
Right.
And so to me, it's like, I would have had no problem rewinding it back. Right. I would have had no problem going back and doing, the Food Network show and continuing to do that, and putting comedy on hold. Like I would have not done stand-up. I would have done whatever, you know, but if the price made sense, like the whole reason I did the show in the first place was to get a bigger audience for stand-up. So if you're then telling me I can't do stand-up or you don't want me to do it because you're afraid it's gonna, one second. Sorry, I'm just replying to someone. You know, if you're afraid it's going to have a negative impact on the thing and you want me to just be Jimmy, you know, Food Show, no problem. But the guys who are Jimmy Food Show, who were doing anywhere near the numbers I was doing, were making over $20,000 an episode. They had producer credits on their show. They had ownership in their show. And so I was like, if you want me to do that and not do this
creative,
then
you want to be part of the creative process.
Yeah, then pay me to do this. The right amount of money. Because you know you got a sweetheart of a deal because I was an unknown guy. And then I bet on myself. I did a contract where I came in and said, I'll hit these numbers. And if we hit these numbers, we're going to renegotiate in a year and we're going to get me the contract that I think I'll earn. And, you know, it's just so weird to me that, then when you sort of call people out on that stuff and say, I was just tweeting this, when you call people out on that stuff and say, yeah, listen, I'll sell out, but the price has to be right.
Yeah.
Then they almost get like angry because, you know, you're like, you're putting them on there. You're like, it's not even about principle. It's about value.
And people were so mad because Rogan sold out to Spotify. And I was like, no, you don't understand. He's moving on to a giant, even bigger platform. And now he holds the cards to say and do whatever he wants. And I want to get to that place where it's like, oh, no, you want me? So you better I should be able to say whatever I want if you want me. And until we get to that, because like, I don't think like, well, I know I'm not there, but I want to get to that place where I can say, I can be my own boss without having to worry about being canceled.
Right.
And, you know, and then saying like, listen, if you do want me to calm that shit down, fuck you, pay me.
Right. And it's sort of like, listen, I think there's nothing wrong with the creative challenge of like, trying to make this joke without making like using profanity or using this language or whatever. Anytime I've done like clean shows or whatever, they're good challenges. Makes you become a better comedian. Sure. But I've never done those for free. I've never gone in and been like, I'll do a clean show for free. Like never. That's never been my thing. Like if you're going to compromise, you're either doing exactly what you want. If you're going to compromise it in any way, there has to be what I would call a compromise tax. If you want me to compromise on my creative vision for myself and my career, then that costs you money. Yeah. Otherwise, just go do what I'm doing. And this is what I used to say this is what I say to managers and agents in the industry is like, listen, to some extent, if you could do what I do, you'd be on my side of the table and not yours. Right. So you're somebody who sells ideas. I'm somebody who has ideas. Mm-hmm. We can either work together or I will just figure out a way to sell the ideas that I have. I'm not going to just
like you though deserve to be in that and the decision-making process, especially comics who we know what funny is. And so for these days, it seems like a lot of these Hollywood executives or guys, not even Hollywood, just anywhere, all these executives they are literally no talent. Literally,
well, this is the misconception about Hollywood executives. Everyone goes like, oh, they're all these like rich old white men. They're not. Almost every development executive in television is a woman under the age of 30. Okay. Almost all of them. And so, most of them are white women. Most of them are very wealthy white girls who grew up, went to a good school. They went to fucking Vassar. They went to USC. They went to NYU. And they are now, you know, they might have worked at an agency for a little bit, but they'll come in as a producer on a show that does well, and then they'll end up running the entire development for a network. And so, like, you look at like the women, and it's this way in comedy clubs too. People don't realize like most of the gatekeepers in comedy are women. Yeah. And so when people talk about like there's this huge barrier to entry for women in comedy, no, the reality is most of them are women. And because they're women, they have a much higher standard of what they're going to accept from female comics. Right. And a lot of them think a lot of female comics are shit.
Right.
And so
that's true. And I think I heard who was saying this on her podcast? I don't remember which female comedian, but they said the same exact thing. It's like, it's not that, you know, that there's no competition or there's no female interest in doing comedy or they can't get in because of they're being harbored by the patriarchy. Right. It's just that it's about interest, and it's also about they suck. So
yeah, there's a lot of redundancy, you know, and I think the difficulty, somebody put a really, really good spin on this, and I can't remember who said it. And I wish I did, but and it kind of pertains a little bit to what Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson have talked about in the past about part of the reason why women are paid less is not because of misogyny. It's because that they're more agreeable and they're more likely to take the first deal that's kind of thrown at them versus negotiating harder for a better deal.
Men
and so
negotiate more. I mean, most of us, you know, there are some outliers, of course, but
sure. And there are women that are bulls. Like you look at like Tracy Tudor, the real estate agent on $1 Million Listing. She's a fucking savage. Like if I was in the market of buying or selling $1 million home, which I probably never will be, but if I was, That's the person I would want representing me because she's a pit bull, right? But she's an outlier. But she's an outlier. Yeah. Like we like to hold women out like that because they're special and unique. But everyone can't be Tracy Tudor. No. Everyone can't be, you know, Mark Cuban. And so when you think about people that are really solid, hard negotiators, that's a unique skill. The same comes down to like talented people. There is only ever going to be one Dave Chappelle. There might be a handful of comics who get to that level. Same with women. There's only ever going to be one Joan Rivers, and there might be, you know, 3 or 4 that get close to her. I think Lisa Lampanelli was probably the closest thing we ever had to Joan Rivers.
Lisa Lampanelli was definitely, she's one of my influences, man. I all those roasts she did. And I've had, you know, who's to say, like, I had, you know, because I was raised by a mother and she had 3 sisters. So it was a very matriarchal family I grew up in. And so, like, I had female influences as far as comedy goes, even the ones of today, like Whitney Cummings and stuff. Like, so, but like Lisa Lampanelli, I was the first female. I was like, you know, I remember being a kid and being like, man, I had never heard a woman talk like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, and then that was for me, I just grew up and that was all my sisters and my aunts. They all talked like that. So, you know, when I met regular women, I was like, what the fuck are these?
Right, exactly. Like, what are these prim, proper women? My mother was a very prim, like proper Southern woman. So when I heard, and her sisters were too. So when I heard like, you know, it took me to join the military to find out there are a lot of women out there who are got foul mouths, but then like, you know, everyday woman, but like Lisa Lampanelli, I was just like, she's saying things that like you don't ever hear women talking about. Like I never heard my, you know, thank God, like my aunts talking about their vagina, you know.
Yeah,
she comes up, she's talking about, you know,
fucking black dudes, like, and oh yeah, she was hardcore. Lisa was hardcore, man. She was great, and
she was a gangster, dude. She was a gangster.
And for me, the opposite culture shock happened because I grew up on the East Coast, and all women that I grew up around kind of talked like that. And then I moved to Minnesota to the Midwest.
And I figured that out.
Yeah, when I moved to Minnesota in high school, I was like, "What do you mean you don't curse or fuck?"
My wife's from Maryland. My wife's from Maryland, and she's like, she talks just like cusses like a sailor, you know.
Yeah,
that's how I grew up, you know.
Yeah, it's a very sort of kind of it's a very dog eat dog kind of cutthroat culture, and I miss it. I miss it some days. And this is what I'll say. The difference is I'll shit on Philly where I'm from, and I'll shit on people like Baltimore, the East Coast. But I will say this: I would rather be stabbed in the face than in the back. And the one thing I love about people on the East Coast is that, like, if they're rude, they're at least deliberately rude to your face. They don't do it in this pussy, passive-aggressive California way.
I was going to say this, too. It's like that whole Southern hospitality, that's not real. That doesn't exist. You know why? Because it's a fake-ass nice. Like, it's like, oh, the phrase, here's a phrase. Oh, bless your heart. That means you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah, and exactly.
They'll stab you literally in the back. And they'll be like your best friend and then talk shit behind your back. Oh, well, what a piece of shit he is. And be like, oh, you know, bless his heart or whatever.
Yeah.
But then, like, I like it here when I moved here the first time because I grew up in Mississippi, but also lived in Texas. So I was used to everybody waving at each other and shaking hands and high-fiving and whatever, being nice and smiling. And I thought that was real until I got to Maryland. And this is the most realest shit. And I was like, I will not trade this for anything. I'd rather, like, I literally first time interaction with a person from like Baltimore, I waved at them in passing, they flipped me off. At the time, I was like, man, what did I ever do to that guy? But then I'm like, you know what? I'd have flipped me off too after living here for 10 years. Like, who the fuck is your problem? Who do you think you are, asshole?
Right, exactly. Yeah, there's this very sort of like you think you're better than me default mentality for people on the East Coast. Which,
why are you happy? You have no reason to be happy. It's bitter. It's cold. Fuck you know?
Yeah, and I think that is like that's kind of like the East Coast, West Coast thing has always been that way in stand-up. And the weird thing is, like, it's almost like the East Coast mentality of stand-up comedy is no longer represented in the audiences. No. Like, and I feel like that's not true, because if you go, you go to a Legion of Skanks show or you go to like a Nick DiPaolo show, those fucking people come out in droves. And even still, like the old school guys like Norton, who used to be on O&A all the time, like they still draw that audience out. And a lot of those people are like, 30 to 60.
Yeah.
but the younger audience skews very sort of West Coast, very PC, very, fucking
Tim
gay,
Dillon draws
very gay,
Tim Dillon draws out the assholes from New York. He's very good at that. Like, he's one of the ones that I've been watching, and he's just so in your face, unapologetically. His videos are insanely funny.
Yeah.
And like a couple of other guys, like Luis Gomez, like they're and even like Big J, who, like, my favorite thing about him is he likes to do the crowd work. And then Schultz, like, New York comedy, I think, took a big dip for a while, and I think it's kind of coming back.
Well, I don't know if it necessarily took a dip, but where it kind of got, there was sort of just like a generational fall off between the Patrice, Geraldo, Colin Quinn, Jim Norton generation, the Attell generation, and then this new generation. And it just kind of took the new, and you know what it was? It wasn't even their fault. It's because Hollywood and Comedy Central used to have their arms around the New York guys and really used to push them. Yeah. Like, if you remember, like, Colin Quinn had Tough Crowd. Attell had Insomniac. I'm sure there are other ones. Geraldo had his show for a while. I can't remember what it was, but it was like a court show. They loved Patrice. They put Patrice on everything. So they loved Burr. Burr was on Chappelle's show a ton. So it was this weird thing of, like, when the new regime came in and Comedy Central pivoted and became very alt comedy and very LA, where this pivot happened right around when I moved to LA, 2009, 2010, and the guys getting specials were a lot of the Midwestern dudes that I had started with. So it was like it pivoted, and instead of like the Geraldo kind of comics and the Patrice kind of comics getting specials, it became Kyle Kinane, it became Kumail Nanjiani. It became kind of quirky. And I wouldn't say that Kinane is like nerdy or quirky comedy.
No.
But he came out of that scene. He came out of that alt scene. And so, like, almost everyone that I started with got specials when I moved to LA, like right around that time. It was like Prescott Tolk, Rene Gautier, TJ Miller, Kumail, those kind of guys, like the nerd. Then a lot of the guys who started and did the Nerdist shows. Pete Holmes really blew up around that time, had a late night show after Conan. So there was like this real big push, and I don't say this to be offensive to those guys, but it was sort of like a real big push to demasculinize comedy, to make it, to find pussy men and give them television exposure, because comedy was very alpha before that.
That makes sense, because, like, I mean, I'm not knocking these guys either. Their work is great. Like, was it Delaney? Like, he's one of the. Yeah.
You mean Rob Delaney or John Mulaney?
John Mulaney. John
Mulaney.
John Mulaney. He's like he wears very kind of effeminate, but, like,
yeah, he's a very beta kind of guy, and that's his brand, right? But he's hilarious.
And I get it. And it's like, you look at that, and then that makes sense, because I remember, like, even coming up, like, I don't know, it seemed like 10, 15 years ago, I'm like, I thought, what happened to, like the comedy is kind of more like, I don't know. I was used, like you said, I grew up watching, like, but Kennison and, and Coming Up and Bill Hicks and what.
But you got to think about this. You got to think about it in cycles, right? And so go all the way back to the beginning. In the very, very beginning, it was like slapsticky nonsense, right? Charlie Chaplin, Fatty Arbuckle, shit like that. And then came fucking Red Fox, and people were like, oh shit, Lenny Bruce and George Carlin. So those were the original badasses, and then it pivoted. And the mainstream was Cosby, Paula Poundstone, these Jerry Seinfeld, these Robin cleaned
Williams.
Up.
Well,
Robin wasn't really raw until later. He didn't really get raw, like really filthy and shit, until he was in his 40s or 50s. But for the most part, the mainstream became very polished, and this is when the suit and tie boom happened the first time. Then that led to the resurgence of raw, edgy comedy that came out with Patrice and Attell and Burr and Colin Quinn and all those guys came out of that. And then that led to the beta male era of comedy in the mid-2000s, which sort of started with Dane Cook. And not that Dane was one of those sort of beta male comics, but Dane was the first comic who said, well, you don't have to be one of these hardcore guys.
Right.
You can be a little more silly and a little bit more goofy. You could also be handsome because he was considered very handsome at the time.
Yeah.
And so then people started looking at comedians like Hollywood actors and saying, we want good-looking guys who are clean, who are not offensive, who can be put in movies and do these other things. And then it pivoted back to kind of pussy men in the mid-2000s. And then here we are 10 years later, and you're watching the pendulum slowly go back the other way, where a guy like Tim Dillon, who is, and I say this with all love, Tim Dillon is like a Colin Quinn reboot. A ranty, political, angry, and I think he's 10 times funnier than I think Tim Dillon is like if you took Colin and Patrice and put them together and it was a fat white dude who sucked dick. That's Tim Dillon.
Yeah. Like he's like this guy that fucks twinks, but also talks like he's like fucking, you know, like he can bang your chick and
you know what I mean? Like, so this sort of alpha, the alpha nature of comedy is coming back, and then so it's sort of like now is the time for guys like myself, Sam Tripoli, Louis J. Gomez, Big J. Ogerson. Like the market is there for people like us now, and we have about a 10-year window now to make something of ourselves before the pussiness comes back.
When's the market for tall dudes, man? Because I'm really looking for that. I know back in the day, like tall guy, like Dane Cook's a tall guy.
Gary Gulman is monstrous.
Yeah.
You can turn that. You can turn that light back on. That actually.
Good now. It's killing me. It's bright as shit. So like it's 6 foot. I think Okerson's like 6'3". But like, yeah, like, and even like today, like the also there's a new sub.
I'm only 6 feet tall, and I'm a fucking monster in Hollywood.
Yeah, man, you're a fucking monster. You're a big bearded ginger monster, dude. I think, but they like guys like the heavier set guys are coming back. I think that's like a subcategory. Like you got your Kreischers, your Seguras.
Well, Tom, what's interesting about Segura is a guy who's kind of penetrated through all of it because Tom can play all the rooms. Like Tom actually started doing a lot of the alt rooms that the guys I was just talking about were doing. Like when I moved to LA, I didn't meet Segura at the A clubs. I met Segura doing the off strip shows that were a lot of the dudes I talked about. Segura would be on shows with Pete Holmes and Kyle Kinane and Kumail and stuff. And then it wasn't, you know, he would go on the road with Russell Peters. He would go on the road with Rogan and open for those guys. And it really wasn't until Your Mom's House that he got pushed into the top stratosphere of comedians.
Yeah, he lost weight too. I think that kind of helped. I think he was just like, I lost weight, so fuck you guys. I'm the top now.
But you know, the thing is like people that are truly undeniably funny survive the ebbs and flows, right?
Yeah.
They and you know, I think some of the difficulty for me, maybe I don't know if this is a mistake in my career, but I can switch gears from one kind of room to the next. So if you look at my performance, like if I do the main room at the store, I'm a lot more sort of forceful. I'm a lot more gregarious. And then if you look at like the clip that I have that's online, that's at a club called M Bar, or not M Bar. Sorry, it was M Bar's been closed forever. It was a place called Malo Cantina in Silver Lake, which is kind of a more alty type room.
Yeah.
And so my delivery is a little bit more tongue in cheek, a little bit more clever, a little bit more sarcastic. And so I kind of have bounced back and forth depending on the room I've been in. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not, because I think sometimes people look at that and go, well, this person's still figuring out who they are. And
I disagree.
Rather than like hybrid kind of, but I try to curate the show to the audience. Like if it's a smart audience, I want to do smart material. If it's a rowdy audience, I want to do, you know, edgy shit.
Right. I think you're just good at reading the room, and that's what you have to do. So my first ever open mic, I didn't, you know, this is like, you know, the trial by fire. I walked in this place, like it's a little college town, you know, it's not that big of a college. It's not even a well-known college, but I went there and it was like 21-year-old, like college kids in this bar. And I said, you know, there's not much of a 36-year-old man with 2 kids and who is also a husband or whatever, father, have in common with a 19-year-old college kid. So I didn't read the room. I just said, we'll just wing it, and I winged it, and I did my set, and they didn't get any of the references. I'm like, fuck. So that was, like I said, like you come in and you read the room and you changed it up, and you have to adapt, man, because like I have a feeling like that's just every comic. When they see what's in the room, and they just like adjust fire, and you have to survive, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is true. It's, and I think there's a thing of like reading the room is good. I think you have to be cautious about how much you let it influence you,
Right.
because sometimes it can take you away entirely from, who you are and what you want to do and what you want to be. And so that's all I'm saying is like, I do think there are times where I have allowed that to happen, where, I sort of like let the shift of the room kind of alternate what I do. And sometimes, maybe you should just say, fuck it, and do something that's sort of the opposite of what you think the room would want too. So, it's kind of like the poker mentality of like, you always want to be leading, you always want to be dictating the behavior. And so sometimes, you just have to make that adjustment and say, I know everybody here seems very alty, or that seems like the audience, but maybe I'll just take it a different direction. And, I think when you look at the greats, they kind of have that consistent style. But I don't know. I mean, I've always liked that I have some jokes that sort of fit the smart rooms, and then I have some jokes that are for the meatheads as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And because I feel like I'm a blend of those things. I feel like I'm 50% meathead and 50% very smart person, and my comedy is like a mixture of those two things.
Yeah, for someone who does like martial arts, and I've done sports my whole life and been in the military, I'm like 95% meathead. But it comes with the territory of also like I understand that I'm a Neanderthal and I can make fun of myself, and that's what people enjoy. When you do that, you don't want to go overboard with the deprecation, because now you're like, oh well, this dude doesn't really take himself that seriously, like, or he doesn't really he really thinks this, like, he has low self-esteem. You don't want to get in that area. But I come to the air, like, the thing is, like, I want everybody to like feel like they're like part of, like, they're welcome, and I understand them and I relate to them. Sometimes it doesn't really work out because, like, again, I'm not a 19-year-old college kid, so that's really hard for me to adjust.
Well, the relatability piece is the piece that's sort of not negotiable with comedy. And what I mean by that is, like, you can be a lot of different things, but you've got to either have thoughts that people relate to, or you have to have perspective that people relate to, because without those things, you're just a weird comedian. And you're kind of relying entirely on your charisma and your delivery and everything else. And so, like, there are comics like that. Like, people don't love Maria Bamford because they can relate to her. They love her because she's so unique and so silly and so original, and she's just flat out entertaining. But it takes a lot of fucking talent to be a Maria Bamford, and I don't think a lot of people can be that kind of comic. And I'm trying to think, like, the male equivalent would be like a Zach Galifianakis. Like, it takes like, you can't just decide that you're going to be a Zach Galifianakis type of comic, or even like an Anthony Jeselnik, like somebody who is so into this sort of character that they play. It takes a tremendous amount of talent to do that. And, I've never been somebody who's like, would ever try to hold myself out like that. And I have always felt like if I've ever tried to be too clever with shit, that's where it goes south. Like, if I ever try to be too cute or too clever with something, the audience doesn't buy it because I just don't seem like that guy.
I try not to like think too hard on a joke and get that, like, letting it flow. Cause like, I think for me, and this is going to sound weird, like, so I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and it's a flow sport where you have to just, when the opponent comes at you, you have to adjust to their body mechanics and their style. And you're not trying to kill each other. So it's like flowing water. But like the same thing, and I approach comedy the same way. You have to let the audience come at you and how you feel, the aura, so to speak. and you adjust fire to that, and it's kind of like a give or take situation where it's like how much are you going to give me and how much am I going to take, and vice versa.
Well, I think so much of life is that. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's the thing that's so great about martial arts. And you know, I don't have kids of my own, but I tell all of my friends, and most of my friends who have kids are single mothers, and I'm like, the best thing you can do for your child is get them into martial arts at the age of like 5 or 4, because it'll teach them personal discipline. It'll teach them responsibility. It will teach them restraint. It will teach them how to channel their aggression productively. I mean, if there was anything I could go back and do over, I would have gotten into martial arts way younger, and I would have stayed with it way longer.
I think everybody, like, I encourage everybody, not just jujitsu, but pretty much like, you know, whatever martial art. It can be karate, taekwondo. Before when I
did a keto.
Hey,
yeah, I did a keto when I was like 10 or 11 for about a year.
Right. Some people take that and use it, and some people end up being Steven Seagal. So you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I'll let you guess which one I ended up with.
And somewhere in, not him, thank God. But no, like
I got into ice hockey, or I got into hockey specifically, and then later ice hockey. But I got into hockey, and that's when I walked away from both football and martial arts when I got into hockey, because I just loved it more.
Sports in general, man. I think that everybody should like play a sport, you know, but like martial arts and specifically because before I signed up, like I was just like this drunk military guy that just partied like he was in college all the time, and I had no like purpose and goals. They said military builds discipline, but only if you allow it to. And me, I was just like, nah, you know, whatever. I just like the whatever. So then like I found martial arts, and it gave me purpose. It gave me like confidence. Like, I mean, like I was a very insecure person, you know, before that. You know, I had like, it was like false bravado. And then like the military, like was like a lot of military guys are like false bravado, you know, but when you come into like martial arts, you leave your ego at the door, and everybody's the same. And I was like, oh man, you know what? I'm no better than him. He's no better than me. And we start off, we're both white belts, and we start going, then we become friends. And like, there's this brotherhood. And in the meanwhile, you're both learning how to, like, you know, not only defend yourself, but like your mind changes as soon as you start like with that, your discipline. When you start getting disciplined, your whole entire like brain chemistry changes. Like I started eating healthier. I started like doing even like outside weightlifting, cardio. And I stopped smoking cigarettes. I used to dip.
Do you think part of that though is because, and I'll just throw this out there as someone who, you know, struggles with the getting in shape thing, with the, you know, I've been up and down the last 10 years constantly. I think that the reason jiu-jitsu has that effect on people, because my buddy Tony Vinn, who's a comic as well, started doing it, and he kind of had a similar response to it. He took he had like a free class offer or something, went and did it, and then like jumped into it with both feet. It's like completely changed his health and his lifestyle. And here's what I think it does, and correct me if I'm wrong. The thing about combat is you understand the peril at hand because of your physical limitations.
Right.
Like you generally, like if it's like, oh, if I can't lift something, it's like, it's fine, I figure it out, right? I'll come back to it later, I'll give it another go. If I if I get winded doing something physical, there aren't dire consequences to that. Yeah. When you're in combat with another human and you feel overpowered and you feel almost like victimized by your own body's inability to perform, I think that puts a seed in your head of like, oh fuck, like this is a severe issue. Like these physical limitations now, and I think to have them tested against another person is the deciding thing, is to say, oh my God, another human being just inflicted their fucking will upon me. That's terrifying, and I don't want that.
It's like throwing, like, it's the same to me, like when I first started, it was like you throwing a toddler into a pool for the first time.
I'm glad you brought this up, because me and the missus just had a whole fucking conversation about this last night.
So like, just like throwing a toddler into the water, and you know, like you're gonna either you swim or you drown. And it's the same thing like with martial art, with jujitsu. It's like jujitsu and anything combat sports related, in that high stress will show you who your true self, really is. It'll show you who you really are. And not to say that you are this really, but it'll show you how much of a pussy you are. It shows you like how much of a coward you are, how much you're willing to take, and how often you're willing to quit. Which in jujitsu is, and that's fine.
So in a way, it's making you confront yourself, is what you're saying.
You are not battling your opponent; you're battling yourself. And in a combat, like in a situation where like this dude can very well in a real fight kill me, and that brings perspective. So now you like. And even in the military, like when we face, training for combat in combat situations where that enemy wants to kill us, and it triggers something in the freeze, fight, or flight situation. What are you going to do? Are you going to pussy out, or are you going to fight? And a lot of humans are not in our life, in our bubble in America. We're not tested. We're not tested at all. There's a lot of people go through life who have never been through any kind of adversity. Who've never been in any kind of physical strife at all. They just go through life. Everything's fine, which is a lot, to me, in my opinion, a lot of the left's problem. That's my opinion. Like,
I think you're 100% right, man. I think you're 100% right. It's an insane thing right here. I'm gonna see. Can you hear that audio when it plays? I don't know if you can. I don't know if the viewers can. They might be able to. I'm going to try to I want to try to pull up a clip. I've not done this on a show before, so let me see if I can figure it out. But I've done it on Zoom because I think people need to see this if they're not familiar with it. I'm so glad you brought up the throwing a toddler in a pool. It's not even toddlers, it's infants. And so like is
it the one where the infants start swimming?
No, it's there's one, this might be the one I'm looking at now, the one you're talking about, where she literally, here it is. So yeah, this shit is terrifying. Let me see if I can share my screen. Application window. Here we go. Here's this. Let me kind of do it like that. I want to add this in. Yeah, let me pull this up. This woman got death threats. Here we go. Oh, yeah, cool. This is very cool. So this woman got death threats for doing this, but she's just...
What? And it started... And it got on its back, and it started floating. Until he doesn't.
So apparently, like, my girlfriend saw this for the first time yesterday and was like, what the fuck? And I was like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. And I think I remember seeing this when that lady did it. But apparently it's like entirely based on, like, babies have this instinct to float on their back and to try to breathe. And it's so weird to me. And so then we got into the whole conversation of like, oh my God, if somebody did that to our kid, what would you do? Or what would you, it's like, well, number one, this is the evil side of me. I would be like, well, if the kid learns to swim, that's great. And he's tough. And it proves that there's some sort of, intrinsic survival thing, even for babies. And if he doesn't make it, we own the YMCA forever.
Yeah. Like, dude, you think like, hundreds of thousands of years ago in the dawn of humans, like, I would imagine that when we had to learn how to swim pretty fucking early to evade, get away from predators.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, no different than dogs, man. Like puppies, like my puppy I just got, she knows how to swim. How the fuck did she learn that? I didn't teach her.
Yeah.
So like, why would it not be in an infant child,
I think it's just the fact that the woman just like palms the baby and just
dude,
and
she fucking just, like volleyball, kind of like volleyball spiked it a little bit into the pool, which was kind of like, I can understand where like, what the fuck is that for? But yeah. I thought it didn't work out, we'd all be pissed.
Yeah, of course. Out. Like, it's gonna be fine until the one time it doesn't work, and then everyone's gonna be like, well, of course, bitch. Like, and I was saying, like, there's gotta be some moment. Like, there's going to be some situation where the timing is off and the baby just happens to sort of like inhale as it's hitting the water.
You could find out how retarded your infant son's going to be if they don't.
Right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it might be maybe we just found the solution to late-term abortion.
Right.
If you don't want the baby, have it.
Listen,
throw it in the pool. If it floats up, then it's a winner.
Sparta, they fucking threw kids off cliffs. We're just more humane that way.
Yeah, if it turns around and floats, you know you got a winner. If it doesn't make it, then Darwinism.
If it does make it somehow, but it barely hangs on, just like that kid's probably not gonna grow up to be really smart. So just prepare for life of them not being intelligent.
Yeah, I mean, so you could probably save yourself a lot of heartache and trouble by doing it that way.
Little Johnny's not going to Harvard, I can tell you that.
Yeah, if he can't, that's funny too. But did you see that? One of my favorite things. Did you see that clip of what was it? Oh God, it's the new Reno 911.
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, it's on Quibi or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's shorts, but there's a clip that I saw that's of like Jonesy who like runs up, and it's a white lady called people on black kids in the pool. It's like, there's black kids in the pool. And he's like, woman, you got to stop calling the cops on black people all the time. They're not bothering you. What the fuck is wrong with you? What's wrong? What are the black kids doing? And she's like, they're drowning. He's like, black babies. He's like running to save them. It's so funny.
I got to watch that.
Dude, it's the funniest clip ever.
Dude, did you see the clip of the cougar? Of the mountain lion?
Oh, the one chasing the guy who was walking backwards and filming it?
Well, I don't know if it's like some weird human instinct. When that motherfucker rose up and like did that thing where he just kind of up,
lunged at him. Yeah,
it was lunged at him. And I'm like thinking the whole fucking time, there's literally boulders sitting next to you. Why didn't you pick up one of those earlier and chunk it at the motherfucker?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. This is a weird thing to share, but I'll tell you what, man, I have this sort of like recurring, it's not even a dream. It's like a recurring vision. Every time I walk out the front door of my house, it's like I'm waiting for a cougar or a mountain lion to have come down, because we don't live far from the mountains in Burbank.
Right.
I'm just like, one of these days we have this like big outdoor garbage area where everyone goes and throws their trash, and it's walled in. And I'm like, I'm waiting for the day when there's enough raccoons and coyotes in there to lure out a mountain lion. And I'm waiting for the day that a fucking mountain lion is just walking in front of my apartment when I come out. And, I had friends when the fires happened a couple of years ago said that they had to shoot one in their yard because it came down and was like attacking their dogs.
Yeah. Yeah,
people forget those things are up there, man. Like you're walking around in downtown Burbank, and you forget you're like, less than you're probably 3 football fields from families of mountain lions.
Where I live in Maryland, we don't have like cougars, but we have like coyotes. And they like one coyote, they're probably like 40 pounds. They're kind of bitch dogs, but like when they're in a pack, they don't give a fuck, and they're hungry. Usually too. So that we had stray cats in my neighborhood. There's no more stray cats because the coyotes have eaten them all. But then like they're in DC too. Like they're coyotes coming in DC, and we like to call those politicians. But that's neither here or there. But like they have in actual cities, and coyotes are coming into like DC, Baltimore too, because they're fucking hungry, and the cities are expanding out and destroying their habitat. But like, I like have not a real like, I guess I kind of have a weird it gets pitch black dark in my neighborhood. And then before COVID, I drive to work, and I drive to Baltimore, and like I live in a part where it's really pitch black dark around here. There's no street lights, no moonlight, nothing. So come outside, and I'm always afraid like I'm gonna get jumped by these coyotes that they just kind of come out and like, if I make a big loud noise, they'll go away because they're kind of like pussies, but like, I just have that thing. Then one of my neighbors one year was like, yeah, we saw a bear not too long ago. I'm like, I'm sorry, did you just say a bear?
That's the crazy thing about how difficult it is to carry a gun in California is like, you'd have to get a special sheriff's exemption to carry a gun on your own property. I think maybe I'm wrong, to carry it. Even if you lived in a part like not far from here, if you go up to Tahunga Canyon, that's all super rural. It's like ranch area
Yeah.
properties and stuff. So like if you lived up there, you would probably should carry a pistol on your property in the event that something like that shows up, whether it
My
be
brother lives in San Diego, and he's a animal control officer, and so he carries
so he knows because he gets the
knows.
calls when somebody like me is like, there's a mountain lion in my garbage.
Yeah, he's had those calls before. He's had coyotes. He's had, other like I don't know. He said he had a call of a bear.
Fucking mute,
Like,
bears.
I don't know what you want me to do with that, but a bear can do whatever the fuck it wants. So
right, you call animal control for a bear, they're like, listen, you are on your. We don't do bears.
One of my friends
like sharks. They're like, what do you want me to do? Go in the water and fight them all? Like,
yeah, exactly. And then one of my friends was like, well, I didn't even know they had bears in California. It's like they literally have a fucking bear on their flag.
Yeah,
like,
it's a lot of bears.
Yeah, so
and, especially in West Hollywood, if you've ever been there, ton of them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So one of our commenters here just said this. I'm in Arizona and I have to carry when I walk my dogs, coyotes, and javelina. Yeah, javelina pigs. People don't think about wild pigs, dude, but Texas and shit has those wild hogs that are fucking terrifying, man. Those things are huge.
Crazy person, Tim Kennedy. That guy's a psychopath, but he's hilarious, but also a psychopath. And I love him to death. Love listening to him talk. But like he was talking about, he goes on these hunts in a helicopter in Texas and just mows down, like with, I guess I don't know if he said he used AR-15s, but they were just mowing down like these like packs of wild hogs.
Yeah,
feral hogs, and I'm like, he's like, no, there's millions of them.
Yeah, it's a real problem, and yeah, he's been on Rogan talking about that a couple times, where it's like he's like, we could kill 1 million a week and we would still be, it's an exaggeration. But.
And Rogan came as soon as he said that. Like Rogan was like, oh yeah, let's go do it.
Yeah, he was like, I'll go kill some pigs.
Oh, let's go do it. Yeah.
It's that shit is wild to me, man. I mean, it's like, we very seldom do we find ourselves in nature to the degree where we understand and respect how fragile human life is and how quickly it can be taken from you. And that is absolutely a sort of privilege of westernized civilization, of where we live in these big cities. And, the thing you got to worry about is getting hit by a car or a truck or getting shot by a stray bullet. You don't stop to think that there's also like grizzly bears less than a mile from your doorstep. And who knows what chain of events, what sort of butterfly effect could have you walking out your doorstep and finding a bear in your people find them in their fucking pools in LA all the time.
I saw that. I saw the dude, like there's bears, like people showing bears. Not even, it was like, I thought this was like Alaska. It turns out it was just like somewhere in Pennsylvania where like a black bear,
they sneak in your backyard, they get in your pools, they start blowing each other. No,
they a bunch of bear fucking, like,
different
bears. I'm not talking about like gay bears and like Pornhub. I'm talking about actual furry bears, like these guys,
those are on Pornhub too.
Yeah, they definitely are. But so the bears, like, I think there was one. This bear came up, and they started eating. Like they were having an outdoor picnic in their backyard. The bear was like, this is mine now. So, like, what are you gonna do? That's a 600 pound bear, and he's like, that's like, you live here, cool. Guess what? Now I do. So
yeah. I mean, it's it's I think it's terrifying, but I also think that's kind of good. Like, it should make people, like, you should appreciate the fact that by being indoors and being at home, you're safe, and you've got an added layer of safety that I think sometimes we take for granted.
COVID has saved a lot of people. I mean, honestly, it's killed a lot of people. It also saved people from Darwinism, from like walking outside and getting hit by a fucking car or
it's interesting that you said that too. The other thing that was like, I don't know how it was on the East Coast, but like the first 90 days of COVID, so like when June started or whatever, it was beautiful outside. The air had never felt more fresh and clean. The skies were never bluer. It was literally like 30 days of like minimized emissions and travel. Completely healed the atmosphere.
and David Attenborough started talking. Like he's just like, look at the beautiful trees that have managed to grow back. And like,
I saw people fucking in the middle of the street. It was wild.
Like, and these two beautiful humans fucking in the middle of the street. But like like this Instagram account I follow called Nature is Metal. You have to look it up. It's fucking cool. It's like they get, I don't know, these guys and they take these photographs, beautiful photographs of like nature at its finest. Like sometimes you'll see a lion with a gazelle hanging out of its mouth, bloodied. And I'm like, how is Instagram allowing this? But then I guess they're under the understanding like, hey man, this is nature, you know? So then Nature is Metal has said multiple times, listen, people were like, whoa, how come you don't stop these animals from killing these gazelles? And they were like, we're messing up the natural order of nature. You know, like we can't do that. Yeah, like
right.
And in the animal kingdom, it doesn't work like that. There's no empathy, and who are we to stop that?
Well, you know, there's a couple different schools of thoughts on that in terms of preservation. Is like, you know, do you have to regulate? You know, is our human influence to sort of regulate the amount of predator, you know, killing things to the point of extinction?
Right.
Some people believe yes. Some people believe like if it gets to the point where you have, you know, predators in the wild that are hunting species to the point of extinction, then humans' ability to kind of push on that should be to, you know, kill some of those predators and prevent them from extincting other species. But yes, to your point, that is not the natural order of things. That is not that does disrupt the natural order of things. And, you know, you could argue that the technological advancements that human beings have made over the last 200 years, we'll call it, have actually stunted our evolution because we are building technology to comfort us and to make our lives easier rather than being forced to evolve to nature. So, you know, you could think about that concept a lot of different ways, but I do think that technology will slow evolution and definitely, and if anything, we will start to evolve into a far more fat, you know, slow, intellectually smart, but physically dumb and physically stunted.
Everybody in the Western world, I think everybody on the Eastern plane will be fine. Maybe. But like that goes to point to like going back to like battling adversity and like never having to deal with that. Like we are living in this bubble that nature doesn't live in. Animals battle, you know, for their life every day. Whether even when you're a predator, because a predator can starve to death if there's not enough food.
Right.
And it's the same thing with us. Like even like we are our bodies biologically, like we're not immune to, like, again, COVID happened and out of nowhere, and we weren't prepared. Like, and it's the same thing. Like when you walk outside your door and you have the fear of getting eaten by a mountain lion. Not saying that's going to happen, but it very well could.
If it ever did, I would be like, you know what? I predicted this. I would believe I was psychic before I died.
I'm a soothsayer. I'm a sage. I knew this was as he's eating your heart, but you know.
Yeah. You just said that. It made me think of this story. All the times Joe Rogan tells stories about how bears eat people dick first.
Dick and asshole. Yeah.
Yeah. They just go crotch first. Ugh.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking today. Like, my little puppy's like, she's very nippy and she's only like 8 weeks old, but like she went for my son's, you know what? And I said, well, and I would go, yeah, well, that's what animals do. And she goes, you know, you watch way too much Joe Rogan. I think that it was an accident. Like, no, that's what animals do because Joe Rogan said it.
Bro science.
And like, you know, I'm not one of those guys that go, yeah, Joe Rogan is God, but you know, like, I make fun of guys like that who are just like, yeah, man, I've just been really into Rogan and I listen to his podcast. You know, it really makes sense. And like, do you listen to it for him or do you listen to it for his guests?
Yeah, well, I think ultimately the thing about Rogan is that it's really good because I do think it introduces and has introduced a lot of people to shit they otherwise would have not ever taken interest in and not ever learned anything about. So, you know, it's sort of like his show is kind of like Smart Subjects for Dummies, and it's like it makes information that otherwise seems inaccessible or disinteresting to you accessible and interesting. And so like I never in a million years would think to look up a sleep scientist, and that episode he had with that guy is probably the most impactful episode I've heard in a long time, because I watched it and was like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much my poor sleep has affected my biology for the last probably 25 years.
Yeah. I see that makes sense, because like me with nutrition, because like Rhonda Patrick was on there, and when she's on, I'm glued. But this is my Neanderthal brain. Like when I was glued to her, but I was just like, when others come on, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, that was pretty cool. Then Mike Tyson was on there, and I'm like literally want to be in the fucking camera. Like this is how it's Mike Tyson, bro. Like,
yeah, I gotta watch that one in the Roy Jones.
It was terrifying, literally fucking terrifying. Any Halloween movie you see, not as terrifying as Mike Tyson, who's ready to go to fucking war.
Well, before we get out of here, let me get your thoughts on that. Who do you think is going to win that fight between Tyson and Roy Jones Jr.?
So, me growing up in the late 90s, like Roy Jones Jr. was the king of the middleweights and the light heavyweights, but he never faced anyone quite as terrifying and physically imposing and skilled as Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson is there's a once in a lifetime kind of guy that trickles down from the heavens and enters this body where it's like, I call it, Mike Tyson was a perfect storm, right? And
well, I think so much of it is mental for Mike Tyson as well.
He was a perfect storm that came from poverty in Brownsville, New York. And then he had this old white guy that trained him and hypnotized him basically to believing that he was the greatest of all time at 12 years old, at post-juvenile detention center. And it was just, like I said, perfect storm. He like packed on all this muscle at 14. He looked like a 25-year-old grown man. And he's just killing people. And like Roy Jones has never faced anything quite like that in his career. And I don't think like Roy Jones is probably thinking, no, it's just an exhibition. Mike Tyson does not think this is an exhibition. He may say that to Rogan. He knows this. I know it's an exhibition, but it's not. He's like in his brain. He's like, as soon as I step on those ropes, I'm going to war. And I think that's the Mike Tyson that shows up. And I think it's going to be. I think he's going to knock him out in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, it's it'll be interesting too, because there are some people that think that Tyson is in such amazing shape and is so mentally carved that the dude could actually make a run for a title.
He could. He said that he won't, but like that when you start to get that itch, because when I had my first fight, and it was an exhibition, but like I did okay, but I didn't do as well as I thought, and I'm like, a month later, I got the itch. I was like, shit, I can actually do this for a career. I can keep going. I'm like, wait, Matt, you're 36. What the fuck are you talking about? But so
right.
But like he's getting that itch where he's 53 years old, and I'm like, dude, like it's like a good point that Rogan said to one of his friends. He's like, when you were growing up, did you ever see a 53-year-old man look like that? I know I haven't. They all had beer bellies. Like,
right.
I'm looking at my dad who's 60. He has a beer belly.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, it's, I really think the age is just a number thing is becoming more and more true every day with science, with what we know about nutrition, with what we know about the human body. I mean, I think we're going to get to a point where, I think in 50 years time, it's not going to be unheard of for a human to live over 120 years old.
And I think that's how we combat this complacency we get with technology, as we previously discussed. I think that's how we combat that. Like if humans are going to be fat and lazy, I think if we have a better understanding of nutrition and genetics, and plus, like, I would say even more of how they use not like stem cells, like stuff like that for like repairment and growth and recovery. We can, in the next 50 years, we're going to be superhuman, and hopefully we don't become like it was in WALL-E, where the humans were like being moved around by robots or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I think it'll be good. As far as fights go, well, you and I had a good back and forth about Costa Adesanya. That ended up going the way I thought. It went the way I thought earlier than what I had predicted. I thought it was going to go. I thought he was going to beat the shit out of him, tire him out for 5 rounds, and I thought it was going to go to decision, and Adesanya was going to win on points. I didn't even. I didn't think for a second that Costa would not have been able to take those leg kicks, and that they were as devastating to him as they were, and basically were what led to the end of the fight. I mean,
I'm gonna break it down because I don't know a lot of your audiences if they are maybe new to MMA or don't.
Yeah, maybe probably casual. I don't think.
Sure. So
there's nothing about me that I think generates any kind of significant MMA audience. But for people that you talk about it a lot on your podcast. I'll plug your podcast. Actually, that's not it. I looked it up, and that's not your
oh shit,
your
I'm
handle.
sorry.
It is this. Yeah, there we go. Save. There's the link for your podcast. So people can.
SR at
Yeah,
SR. Me?
yeah, that's what it. You don't even know that?
No, I didn't know I had an SR. I have to look that up. That must have been an error.
Yeah, maybe. I looked it up, and that's what popped up. So it's weird.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think that's where. No, it's right. That's weird. What is under SR? It was right the first time.
Yeah, I was like, I am a senior because I'm the only one, but that's what the SR.
No,
it
is just that. That's weird.
Yeah. So
my phone is lying to me. So yeah, and you talk about MMA, I think, on your podcast a lot more than I do. So if people are interested in that, they should check out your podcast.
Just to elaborate on like the leg kicks real quick, like how he was able to effectively use them. Like leg kicks are, people don't understand. They're like, oh, he's just leg kicking with that. That's some pussy shit. Let me explain to you that a normal average person can only take about. You ever been Charlie horsed? You can only take about 3 or 4 to that inner meat right there, and before you can't walk the next day. So Costa had
anybody who's ever had bad shin splints. If you ever went on a vicious hike and you had bad shin splints the next day, you know how painful lower leg pain can be.
Most veterans have that shin splints because of running. But so he kicks you there, you're unable to actually pivot to throw power punches. You can't move against the cage around. You can't circle around. There's no power. There's no functionality. You can't run away. And he's dead to right. You're dead to rights, and that's what he did. That was his game plan. Just take the legs out. He can't move. Bam, knockout. And I didn't expect Adesanya to knock him out, but I also don't think the Costa I was used to seeing fight Yoel Romero didn't even fucking show up.
I think Israel Adesanya has sneaky Conor McGregor power. Like Conor McGregor is very wiry, very thin, and doesn't look powerful. But I think his technique is so solid that it's not that he's hitting you hard, it's that he's hitting you flush and he's hitting you square where it matters.
He's precision.
Precision.
He had over 100 kickboxing fights before he came to MMA. I mean, he is a tactician. He said it himself. He's like, everybody has power. He's like, but what I have is precision.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but you know what? You have never faced a guy like Costa. And then Adesanya fought Yoel Romero, who's like a carbon copy. And I was like, oh, wait. Yoel's not very tactically sound, and neither is Costa. He's just swing for the fucking fences. And then and then when you said I think he's gonna pick him apart, taking the decision, I was like, maybe, because I think Costa lands one. He didn't even land one. He didn't even throw one fucking punch.
Yeah, he just got embarrassed, and then to add insult to injury, got dry hump embarrassed at the end of the fight, which I thought was hilarious.
Hilarious. I laughed. I became an instant Adesanya fan right
after. I've been an Israel fan for a while. I think he's great. I think he's great for the sport. I think he can be for the sport everything John Jones was supposed to be and fucked up by making all kinds of mistakes with drugs and
I kind of miss
out of the cage issues.
Cocaine John Jones,
I'll tell you what people don't understand, because everyone's saying that's the super fight to make at 205 is Adesanya and John Jones. That would probably break all the pay-per-view records. What I'll tell you is, if John Jones takes those leg kicks, he'll never walk again.
But I also think that John Jones is going to do what I think he's going to do. He's going to take Adesanya to the ground in deep water and rip his fucking arms off.
Yeah, I mean I think he's going to try to, but what I don't think people realize is Israel is faster than Jones was in his prime.
Oh, sure.
And Jones is in his 30s. So, people said the same thing about Costa. They said he's going to hold him, he's going to take him down, he's going to hold him down, and he's going to rip him apart. The difference is Jones has the ability to overcome Izzy's length. Yeah. Because he's actually taller than Adesanya by about an inch, I think.
Yeah, but Jones is very fast. Definitely not faster than Adesanya, but
absolutely not
fast.
And I think I don't know, man. I think Jones would fight the smart fight.
Yeah.
But you remember Jones, that was what Jones was supposed to do against Gustafsson, and he didn't, and that ended up being one of the greatest fights of all time.
He tried standing.
He stood with Gustafsson and almost. I mean, some people thought he lost that fight.
I honestly believe this day, because I'm a huge Gustafsson fan, because because him and I are like the same build, same height, same weight. Like we're both lanky and long, and I kind of have like a style of like using my jab like he does. So I was like, man, I really want this is for the tall guys, you know, like let's do it. And then like he was a champ. It was a champ's advantage, man, and that just sucks with judges. Dude, think about judges. They're humans.
Well, it was the same thing happened. It was the same thing happened in the Reyes fight. I thought Reyes won that fight by far, and you know, it's like it's pretty clear that guys like no one like a John Jones is ever going to lose that belt unless you take it from him. Nope. It was the same thing with Young Jacek. Young Jacek was never going to lose that belt until somebody took it from her. She's never going to lose the decision.
Thug Rose.
Twice. Knocked her out twice.
That girl can like people say that like I hate how like people shit on women like female fighting. I honestly would watch a female fight over heavyweight.
Rose Namajunas, let me just I'll step out on a ledge and say this with my quote unquote expert opinion. And I love when people are like, you're fat, you don't do martial arts, you don't know. Listen, I've been watching MMA since 1990. Okay. I could probably name you 200 fighters you've never fucking heard of.
Right.
So like I study the shit. I know it. I know football too. I didn't play that in fucking college.
I didn't play that shit either.
But like I can tell you this. No one in MMA has better timing and footwork than Rose Namajunas. No one in the entire sport, man or woman. Rose Namajunas has the best footwork in the entire sport of mixed martial arts.
I would agree with that.
The way that she slipped in and out, and she did it to Young Jacek, who's arguably the most prolific striker in women's MMA history, and she danced around her and knocked her the fuck out. And the footwork is why she will beat Zhang Wei Li, because Zhang Wei Li will try to bull rush Rose. She will sidestep. She will circle. Her footwork will get her out of danger, and I think she's going to beat Zhang Wei Li by head kick in one of the first two rounds. Yeah, and so because it's unexpected. I think Zhang Wei Li is not going to think she's going to think that she's not going to throw kicks because she doesn't want to get taken down, because she didn't throw kicks against Andrade, but she did to Andrade in that last fight what she was doing to her in the first fight. Yeah. And she just got fucked up in that clinch and got, slammed and knocked out. And
Andrade is a big, strong girl, man.
Yeah. But I mean, if like Rose Namajunas could literally win that belt back, fight 20 more times and never take any damage for the rest of her career.
No,
like I watched her and I was like, Muhammad Ali would have trouble boxing Rose Namajunas because of her footwork.
Is the best I've seen. Pure boxing is best I've seen. Just not fuck women, just like
and with her
men, women alike.
With her long legs, her ability to close the distance. I mean, she looks like a fucking computer. And she looks like
her mental, how mentally like
it's there now. It's there now.
Mentally tapped in to some, I don't know, some form of weird fucking hypnosis.
It's focus. She's got this weird next level of focus. And I think you liked my comment on her last fight. We watched it. I was like, she's got the best corner in MMA, because the mixture between her husband Pat, I don't know if they're married, but her husband and head coach Pat and Trevor is like this perfect yin and yang of the right amount of constructive criticism and the right amount of emotional support.
They lift her up without giving her too much confidence, but don't beat her down. And that's what you need in a corner.
Dude, she is when she's laser, because I think the only reason she ever lost any fights in her career was because she didn't have that level of focus.
Not at all.
And then when she got to that level, got to that level of focus and realized that she is the greatest in the world and believes it, oh my God.
Such a contrast difference, man, because when she was on The Ultimate Fighter, she had long hair and she would get like makeup and then she would like do her eyebrows, and she was all about like doing what Valerie Lareda does, or what's her name? Paige Van Zant, one future only fangirls. But then like she's like, fuck this shit, I'm a goddamn monk, and she shaved her head. And Pat Barry got a hold of her, and he was great in his own right as well. But like she just tapped in and focused and became like something different, completely different. And she said, fuck all that superficial shit. I'm here, I'm a fighter. This is what I am bred to do, born to do.
Yeah.
And when I seen her, when JJ is a shit talker, and she's great at it, even though it's in like broken English / Polish. She's like talking shit at the stare down, and Rose just doesn't even know.
Nothing, just stoic. Nothing.
Glazed.
I get goosebumps watching her fight because I've never seen anyone so perfect. Like she's right now, she is perfection personified for an MMA fighter. And I don't see any hole in her game. I don't see there is, and I think the fight between her and Zhang Weili might go down as the greatest MMA fight of all time because I think it's going to be. I think Zhang Weili is going to be able to take the ass whooping for all 5 rounds. And I think if Rose does finish her, it's going to be something spectacular like a head kick.
Yeah, she's going to get her belt back. I have a feeling. My favorite female fighter right now, man, is Valentina, the Bullet.
Oh, she's a beast.
She's a beast. Such an animal, and
I'd love to see. What I'd love to see is if Rose beats what's her name at 125. I'd like to see Zhang fight Valentina.
I don't know how that would go down because is so technically like how Rose is with her hands, Valentina is with her feet. And her wrestling and grappling and it's just toughness, man.
Is there a way we can get all? Is there a way we can get all 3 of them to fight each other at the same time?
Yeah, let's have a triple threat match. WWE.
Yes, that's what we need, man.
Tables, ladders, and chairs.
Matt, it's been awesome, dude. Been awesome finally getting you on the show. Thank you so much for it. I'll have you back on. We'll do this. Maybe we'll make this a regular thing. We'll do this like once a month or whatever.
Sure, man. I'm down, dude. Absolutely.
Be great, but I haven't eaten all day. I got to go get some food in me, because obviously I'm starving.
Yeah, it's also 3 hours, but you're also 3 hours behind, so I get it.
Yeah, we're getting right into
it's
dinner
bedtime
time
for me, bro.
My favorite time of the day. Well, thanks so much, man. You got anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Just check my podcast. It's
Ming Podcast on Twitter.
What's that? Yeah, Twitter at Ming Podcast. I'm on iTunes. I'm on YouTube as well, both video and audio. And look out, share my tweets, retweet, and sometimes I say funny shit.
Yeah, man, check it out. And hopefully, once we get back to comedy, man, we can do something when I get out to the East Coast.
Dude, that'd be brilliant. I'd love that.
Awesome, brother. Well, all right, have a good one, man.
All right, man. Take it easy.